So, this is my guitar. Uh, it is an Ovation Celebrity OP30. It's got the active pickups, the EQ, everything. So why this guitar? I'll make it a quick story. So I started playing bass in a college ministry worship band. Didn't know how to play bass, learned as I was going. And then was wanting to learn to play guitar. One of my friends had an applause, shallow body applause that I would mess around with sometimes, and it just felt good. You know, it felt comfortable. It wasn't like the big dreadnought style, and it felt good. So anyway, I was gonna buy a guitar. Didn't know anything about guitars, but I knew I liked that applause. And I looked and I researched, Ovations. Interesting story. They seemed legit. So I thought, okay, that's what I want. I want an acoustic. I'll probably look to get an applause or something. I don't need anything fancy. So I drive the town over, go to the music store, and I'm looking around, and they've got Gibsons and what else did they have? I can't remember. This would have been like 2003. I can't remember what the Washburn. I think they had some Washburns. They had some others. I wasn't looking to spend a lot. Didn't have a lot to spend. And I was looking for more of a traditional thing, but then I saw this. It was really the only Ovation they had. And I wasn't too sure about it. It didn't have the sound hole. It was, a little more expensive than I was wanting to spend. But everything else was more expensive. So I talked myself into it, and I got it. And it is made in Korea. It says made in 2003. I think that's what it says. Made in 2003. Now, at the time, like I said, by this time, I was somewhat partially in charge of the worship team at the campus ministry. And at the time, the guy leading had an acoustic, but it didn't have an active pickup. So I would let him use this, which is, you can see the finish. He was a great big guy, not a fat guy, a big strong guy, and he would just attack the strings. So that's just from the pick, from him playing so hard. That's just from the pick going there. But yeah, this has been, I'm not a guitar guy. I don't know anything about anything, but this is 20 years old. It has served me well. It sounds okay, and these are older strings. I don't play a whole lot. It sounds okay. It just acoustically, but it does really well plugged in to a PA live. You don't. It just, that's where it comes into its own. I'm not going to say that it sounds better than like a nice Taylor or anything like that, but it does sound well, and it takes pedals. It takes pedals pretty well. I use a chorus, and I've played around with some other things, and it does well. So this is my guitar. It's getting really dark. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, but it's got the unusual looking headstock, tuners, branded Ovation. The round body's a little weird at first to get used to. and it can kind of ride up a little when you're playing standing up, um, but it's not bad. It's not bad. Yeah, so this is my this was my first guitar. Technically not. Uh, I bought an electric from a buddy of mine that was going to go overseas because he was just needing to raise money and everything. But learning to play guitar is hard enough. Learning to play electric for me was not working, and so I didn't keep that. I traded that part of that in to get this. And then I had another friend of mine somehow, it was cleaning out a house for somebody or something, and found a PV. I don't even remember what it was. It was bright red. It had the really aggressive hard rock type headstock. It had Floyd Rose locking bridge, but it was missing parts. It was cracked at one point. But I knew a guy that worked on guitars, and he was very talented, very unusual. But I said, "Hey, can you fix this?" He said, "Yeah." And so I paid him whatever he charged to fix that. And then I had a friend of mine from church gave me a PV amp, but it was a great big amp. It was an old PV amp. And if I knew how to play, it probably would have been a real rockin' thing, but I didn't. So I traded the PV guitar amp for a practice amp, a smaller bass practice amp, because I needed one to replace mine. And then I gave the guitar to my buddy Brandon, who was youth pastor at his church, and he gave it to a kid in his church. So those were my first electrics, which I never messed with. I was still learning to play this, and for me, transitioning to electric was beyond the pale, because it's mostly, I wouldn't even say I really know how to play guitar. I know chords, and that's about it. And that was just because, I lived by myself for a couple months without a TV, and I had a guitar, and that's how I learned most of it. And this was, pre-YouTube days, so it was just fiddling stuff out. You could print chord diagrams and stuff off the internet, and print, what was it, like Ultimate Guitar tabs or something, print the music and try to figure it out as you went. But yeah, so this is my Ovation Celebrity. It's been a really good guitar for me. I've heard these described as old guys guitars. Well, I'm kind of an old guy, so I guess that fits. So there it is, the Ovation OP30 Celebrity.